This is the Horse Radio Network.
This is episode 408 of the Stable Scoop Radio Show. Please support our sponsors as they make this show possible.
Our sponsors this week are horselovers.com and our auditors. Auditor Jessica Troup joins us for Virginia as Listener of the Week. Jessica Rhodes stops by to talk podcasting, and Helena reviews the Letia Girth in the horselovers.com Tack and Habit segment. Listen in.
Welcome to the Stable Scoop, with weekly shows delivered right to you. With Helena and Glenn the Geek, live from the stable, it's every week. They'll bring you the news through hail or high water, while using their tails as their own fly swatters. So sit on down and laugh till you poop, cause it's time again for the Stable Scoop. Stable Scoop. The Stable Scoop. Stable Scoop.
This is Glenn the Geek.
And this is Helena B. And you're listening to the Stable Scoop Radio Show on the Horse Radio Network.
Well, we have a day of Jessicas today. All our guests are Jessica. Apparently we're discriminating against everybody else not named Jessica. But
well, I hear that Jessicas are super cool.
They're a good name. Yep,
it's Jessica Day.
That's right. But first, we have to talk about a little trip that you just took.
It was a big trip.
Where were you?
It was a big trip. Buck and I went to the island of Antigua in the Caribbean.
And where's that?
That's what everybody says. Well, it's more commonly known in the United States as Antigua. But all of the world, as we've learned, all of the world calls it Antigua, except for Americans.
Oh, I always thought it was Antigua too.
Yeah. So it's actually Antigua, and it is an island that's part of the Caribbean. It's part of the Caribbean islands are broken up into different groups. Right. There's the Antilles, there's the Lesser Antilles, there's the Windward Islands, the Leeward Islands. This is part of the West Indies. So it's really probably towards the southern part of the Caribbean chain. It's near St. Kitts, Nevis. It's well below the U.S. and British Virgin Islands, but still north of South America. It's in a beautiful spot. Let's just put it that way.
Well, and just looking on the map here, it looks to be about 2 square miles.
No, it's not.
Oh.
Actually,
it's not that big?
No, the islands, it's really not that big, but I think it's 108 square miles.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the population is about 80,000 people.
It looks tiny.
And the capital is St. John's, which, and there's probably 5 roads on the whole island,
Yeah, I'm looking here, and there's not a lot of towns either.
No, they're called parishes.
Okay, yeah.
They're called parishes. And
now, was this a French, a Spanish, an English, or all of the above?
This was English and still is. Now, it's a sovereign country, or meaning it's independent. It won its independence, I believe, in 1981, or might be 1983. And so it is very much English. It's one of the few islands that has maintained complete British law. They follow it to the letter. So even though they're independent, they have adopted fully British law. And so even their infrastructure, their government infrastructure, all of their departments, their engineering, all of that stuff is very British. And there are a lot of British expatriates who live there. So it's very much like an English island.
Don't they have their own name for the island?
No. This
Starts
one
with a W, like...
Walladley?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. And no, the island was actually named by Christopher Columbus, who never actually stopped there. He only sailed by it. And
yeah, we're going to call that one.
I know. That's pretty much what he did. It's true.
It's a drive-by.
He named it. So Antigua is, it means ancient in Spanish. Oh. And so he named it after, some church, Santa Maria de la Antigua, St. Mary of the Old Cathedral. And so that's actually its name. The island's history, the Caribbean islands' history in general, is very interesting. And a lot of people, they were either among all the Caribbean islands, they were either sort of colonized by the English, the French, or the Dutch. And Antigua obviously was colonized by the English. And I think in the 1600s, in the 18th century, so in the 1700s, the British Royal Navy was stationed there. So most of the southern part of the island has a lot of English history, like stone structures, buildings. It's very English, and it's really cool. It's really, really cool. So there's a lot of ruins, and in fact, one of the places that we went to was called Nelson's Dockyard, and it was named after the famous Royal Navy sea captain named Horatio Nelson. And it's a working dockyard, but these are 18th century buildings that are still functioning. So that's really cool.
My guess is it doesn't take long to get through the airport at this place.
Oh my gosh. First of all, they have a brand new, sparkling, gleaming, super efficient airport. And Buck and I have been to a number of islands in the Caribbean, and some of them are little more than cottages and one runway.
Yeah. One guy with a gun.
One guy with a gun. No kidding. All the major U.S. airlines fly to the Caribbean islands. United, American, Delta. So they're all headed that way. This time we flew United, which has direct flights from Newark Airport.
Huh.
And so it was really nice. I mean, getting through these islands, you think for as small as they are, it is a pleasure.
And you always do like Airbnb kind of things, right?
We do VRBO, vacation rental by owner. We don't stay at the resorts because we really are not interested in engaging with other Americans and Europeans while we are away. We want to get away from the Americans.
And how'd that work out this time?
It worked out really well. So we go on vacation rentals by owner, and we usually find a 1-bedroom studio or cottage. And this time we found a cottage that was built into the hill, or it's actually like the remnants of a volcanic crater that leads down into this crystal blue harbor. And it's very tropical. So it's like being in a rainforest in this gorgeous stone cottage. If you go to that newportshow.com or that Newport Show Facebook page, I'll post pictures of where we stayed. But there's no air conditioning. All the doors and windows, they're arched, and they have wooden shutters, and they remained open for the entire duration of our vacation. And so you captured these beautiful tropical ocean breezes, as well as some of the wildlife that we.
I was just going to say, do the bugs come in?
The bugs come in, but only at dusk. So there are mosquitoes, but we slept in a bed that has a mosquito net around it, and we were fine. Like, we didn't get. I mean, they're out for literally like 45 minutes at dusk, and then we saw nothing of the mosquitoes. We did, however, have an unexpected visitor after one night of heavy rains.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a big visitor.
Yeah.
And he was kind of quiet. He wasn't looking to have a party or anything like that, but he was sort of camped out at the back door to the cottage.
Yeah.
And that was something called a horse spider, which other people may know as a tarantula.
Oh, and was he big?
Jesus Lord, he was big. He was big. He was big.
And did you disturb him, or did you just let him go on his way?
Well, Buck and I are super geeks, so we had to kind of poke him a little bit.
Did he like that? The tarantula?
So here's the thing.
Jennifer, by the way, would have been back to the airport and on a plane. She'd have been gone.
Well, so here's the thing. Stupid me, I never think I'm actually going to come across a tarantula, so I've never researched them. So I have no idea if this thing is a danger or not. But my first instinct was to be like, okay, I don't have a problem with spiders. I just don't want him coming into bed with me tonight.
Yeah,
and
with your door
we don't
open.
we don't have air conditioning in the cottage, so you really can't. And it's humid in the islands. You cannot close the place up. So I was like, all right, Buck, we need a plan. What are we going to do? So he's like, well, I'll just get the little dust broom and shush him away from the doorway, and then we'll close the back door. We'll leave the rest of the place open, but we'll just close the back door. I was like, okay. So I'm not freaking out, but you do question. You question, like, I'm in a foreign country. Like, I'm really close to South America.
We don't even know if they have a hospital.
We don't. I know nothing. So he's like, well, let's Google it. Let's look it up. I said, no, I don't even want to know. Like, I think at this point, I'm better off not knowing. So he shushes the spider off, and it goes on its little merry way. And we forget about it. We go to sleep and we're fine. The next day, we look it up, and Buck says, they're known as horse spiders. They are a kind of tarantula, but they're totally harmless. They're not dangerous at all. They don't bite. They're not poisonous. And like all spiders, they're more scared of us than we are of them. So,
you know what it sounds like? We have what's called wolf spiders, which are about the size of your hand. And they're hairy. And we get them in the house here on occasions.
Okay.
And they're fast. Was this one fast?
No. So these guys are slower. And we have wolf spiders actually up here in New England as well.
Yeah, and they're fast. I mean, you can barely get them.
They're creepy fast, those little wolf spiders. Actually, the ones here on my farm, they like to hang out in the muck pile.
Oh.
In my muck pile. And when I'm turning the muck pile over, I'll disturb them. And I'm like, holy cow, that's a huge spider. So, but the spider I saw in Antigua, like I couldn't even use the word huge because it was like 100 times bigger than what I thought of as a huge spider. But so all was well. He went on his merry way. And the funny thing is, he was so interesting that I was more intrigued by him than I was worried about him coming in the cottage. So every morning I got up and I looked out the back door, half hoping to see him, and when he wasn't there, I was kind of disappointed.
You're a sick puppy.
But here's one of the best parts. Okay, in addition to the awesome, beautiful tropical location, the owner of the property, who lived in the main house, which was set a ways from us, had 5 dogs. And there's a little baby gate that you can put across the door to the cottage if you don't want them to come in. Well, of course, I tied mine open so that the dogs could come and go as they please. So we had 5 dogs visiting us on a regular basis.
Oh, geez.
And they would stay, and they would sit on the couch.
Just like home.
And it was just like home. And they were big, lovable, totally awesome dogs, ranging in size from 5 pounds to 120 pounds was the biggest.
Now, you said you were near an equestrian place?
We were near the Spring Hill Riding Club, which is also known as the Antigua Equestrian Center. And the owner of the property that we stayed at, she actually started the Antigua Equestrian Center in the 1960s. She's it's British Horse Society certified. So, it's just like having a pony club right there on the island. And one of the things that's really interesting, and they do just like any other hunter jumper barn around here, they do riding lessons, they do little shows, they travel, believe it or not, to other islands for shows. But one of the things that's always so surprising when you travel to a Caribbean island and you don't stay in a resort, you live in a house, or you stay among the people who actually live there, is that it's very different than the United States. They don't have the infrastructure that we have. So the roads are tiny. They're full of potholes. There really aren't any rules. People don't have the same pride and ownership of their properties that we do here in the U.S. They're just very laid back. So you come up on this riding center, and there's this lush vegetation that's overgrowing everything, and it's very small and unpretentious. And I say to myself, well, where's this equestrian center that I'm looking for? And it's a very small operation. But, oh my gosh, these horses were amazing. Now, sadly, my phone was crushed. So all the pictures that I have of the place are gone.
That's right. You broke your phone. I
broke my phone. Let me tell you something. These horses were shiny. They were well muscled without being.
That's not what you think of when you think Caribbean horses.
Oh my gosh. And we saw the other kinds, which I could go on for an hour about what we saw there. And it was all really good. These horses were fat and shiny, but like well muscled. They were calm. There was no Antigua has been going through a drought. So the last 3 years they've had this drought. So a lot of their pastures, their paddocks were mostly dirt. So they were on dry lots. But every paddock had 2 to 3 beautiful tropical trees as shade. And hanging from the trees were huge small hole hay nets filled with this beautiful hay.
Where did they get the hay?
I don't even know. But I have a theory. I didn't have a chance to ask, but I have a theory. So the horses they're super healthy. Their feet look great. I got to watch a little group lesson on Saturday morning, and horses from ponies up to these big draft crosses. The riders were like phenomenal, quiet hands, quiet legs, all girls that were under 13. The horses were just plodding along. All of them, some of them were like collected, and these kids are doing nothing. I honestly, I was stunned. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but it was such a pleasure to see these happy kids and these happy horses just plugging around, on this Caribbean island. So my theory about why the horses are, and a lot of the animals, so there's goats that roam wild around the island, like herds of them. Like we see wild turkeys and stuff and geese. They have goats and donkeys. And people keep farm animals personally, like somebody could have a cow or a bull. And there were some horses up by the airport. There's a big stable up there. And the horses were all turned out in this huge field that had no fence around it. But every horse was tied. They were tethered. So they had a rope around their neck. It was a long rope. And then like a cement block that they were tied to. And there they would graze. So instead of putting fences up, they tethered the horses. And I thought, I don't know about that. That's a little rough. Where's their water? How long have they been out here? The sun is so hot. And yet you look at them, and again, they're in beautiful health. Their coats are shiny. They're in great weight. They're alert. They seemed happy. Some of them were napping. So cultural differences in animal keeping, probably. Can I judge it negatively? I can't, because the animals didn't reflect any negativity.
Mm. Well, they don't know what they don't know either. I mean, is that part of it, you think?
Or maybe they know something different.
Yeah.
Maybe
they grew up different than ours.
They did. Yeah. And like I said, the horses looked happy. The goats, there were no skin and bones. There were no skinny animals out there. None.
Huh.
None.
Well, very cool. Very cool.
Yes.
I'm glad you had a good trip. Now, real quick, before we run out of time.
Yeah.
You didn't take too well to sailboating.
Oh my God. You had to bring it up. Okay.
You showed one picture and you looked a little green. In the sailboat in the ocean.
So Buck really wanted to go sailing, like big boy sailing, not get on a catamaran with 80 other people and a cocktail. I was like, all right.
No, there were no cocktails.
No, not the kind that we enjoy anyway. So we found a place that does these private charters, they're called. The English call boats yachts. And if it's a sailboat, they call it a sailing yacht. So it was a private yacht charter. And there were 4 of us that went out as guests. And then there were two crew members. And we took out a 40-foot Beneteau, I think is the name of the boat. It's a sloop. It's a single mast, but this is an ocean racing sailboat. This is serious business. And we left Falmouth Harbor, which was very calm and quiet. And as soon as you go out of the harbor, you hit the open Atlantic Ocean. And this is the Atlantic Ocean, as if you're sailing to England Ocean. And I wasn't quite prepared for the change in seas from the harbor to the ocean. And they were fairly big swells, big for a novice. Now imagine you're a horse person and you take one of your long lost friends and you put them on your 16-2 hand, super quiet X-racing thoroughbred or Dutch warm blood. And they're scared as anything, But for you, this horse is like super bomb proof. Well, these people are really experienced sailors. The seas were calm, according to them, and they could sail this boat with their pinky. So they decided to have me steer the boat.
Which, by the way, the steering wheel's about 8 foot tall. It's the biggest damn steering wheel I've ever seen.
It's a big. Well, what you don't see in the picture is for as much of the boat as you see above water, there's almost as much of that boat under the water. The hull has a keel that acts as a counterweight. Dude, I learned so much about the physics of sailing. It was pretty awesome. And I think our horse-loving friends will appreciate it because I'll do this a lot, especially on that Newport show. I will draw comparisons between riding horses and sailing boats. your heart, you have the same, sailors and equestrians have the same kind of heart and the same kind of devotion to their animal, their vessel, their gear, the lifestyle, and the people that they want to share their passion with. So if you're a horse person, you'll appreciate the physics of all this. So anyway, I'm behind this wheel and I put my hands on it and I can actually feel the power of the boat design, the wind, the way the sails are trimmed, or the rigging, the way all this works together, the physics of it. And then I was hit with the sheer responsibility of being responsible for this vessel and the people on board it. At least that's what my little brain was thinking. And I started to have a panic attack. I was like, okay, I'm done. I cannot steer this boat anymore. And they're like, no, you're doing fine. And I said, no, really, I'm not doing fine. I need to go over there and sit down.
I need to go throw up, please.
Well, I wasn't sick yet. So prior to steering the boat, I was having a blast. I was loving the roller coaster ride of going up and down on the swells. That part, it's like having a really good canter, right? Being on a sailboat in the ocean is just like that. It's that awesome feeling, that forward rolling movement. I just became overwhelmed with the responsibility of that wheel. And then I had this panic attack and I was staring at the ocean instead of the land. And I started to get seasick. And I held my act together for a little while, but once that process was in motion, there was no way to stop that train. And oh God, poor Helena, I ended up puking up over the back of the boat. It's like right behind the skipper. I'm
That's
like, dude.
romantic.
Yeah, he's like, just go downwind to me. He's like, it's okay. He's like, he's had this English term, like, we all have to let it up every now and again, but just do it downwind. I was like, all right, no problem. But like horse people, when somebody new comes along and they experience the not so happy side of your sport, you're super empathetic because we've all been there, right? Mm-hmm. We've all been there. They were so kind and so supportive and empathetic. It made me just want to like get back out on a boat and do it again.
Well, you did have an adventure, that's for sure. Between the spiders and the seasickness and everything else, wherever Helena goes, it's an adventure.
It is an adventure. It wouldn't be fun without an adventure. But I highly recommend the island of Antigua. Whether you stay at a resort or you rent a cottage on your own, it's very friendly. And compared to a lot of the other Caribbean islands, it's easy for an American or European to acclimate to island life, even if you're there for just a week. Highly recommended.
And probably most of the properties that you find on Lake Vacations by Owner are expats anyway, right? I mean, they own them.
Absolutely. Yeah. But, the native Antiguans it's a well-to-do country. It really is. So there's not a lot of poverty there. I mean, you find it everywhere, but Antigua by no means is a poor nation. And so sugar mills used to be the number one export, and then that went away. And so, of course, tourism has taken its place. So you rent a place out on an island, you're pretty much going to get something that you'll be very happy with.
Cool. Well, very good. Well, I'm glad you guys had a good time. And you weren't in hurricane season, so you were safe.
No, hurricane season starts in July. It goes July through November. But you know what? It's just like what they say about it there is it's just like being here in the wintertime in New England. What are the chances of, in fact, we get blizzards, those big nor'easters far more often than these guys get hurricanes. So, I don't know. The hurricane season is becoming less and less of an issue for travel to the islands.
Very cool. Well, thank you, Helena. I feel like I was there in the blue water.
Yeah. And like I said, go to thatnewportshow.com or follow us on Facebook and you'll see pictures of everything I did such a poor job of describing.
Well, you did a great job describing. Well, let's get to our first guest. We're going to get a little geeky here right now, where all of you are podcast listeners, or you wouldn't be hearing us today. You obviously like podcasts, or you wouldn't have continued to listen. So we're going to geek out a little bit with a podcasting friend of ours by the name of Jessica Rhodes. We were just on her podcast called The Podcast Producers, Helena and I. Well, sort of Helena and I will explain that. And let's geek out a little bit about podcasting with Jessica Rhodes. Hi, Jessica. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. This is such an honor to be on.
Welcome to Horse World.
Thank you. Gosh, I haven't been in horse world in a long time.
Well, this is there is horse poop everywhere. Just some of us deal with it differently. That's all. Well, Jessica, we were honored to. Well, some of us were honored to be on your show called The Podcast Producers. You only picked a dozen podcasters to be on this year, your second season?
Yeah, there are only 8 episodes this season. So a little more than 8 guests, because a couple episodes like yours had, co-hosts, but 8 podcasts were represented with a little bit more, maybe 12 or 14 guests total.
And we were one of those, Helena.
And you were one.
I know, what an honor.
Yes, when we listed our favorite podcasters that we wanted to interview, you guys were on there.
We rock.
Oh my gosh, I feel like a superstar.
Yeah.
Well, Helena was sort of on it.
I was sort of on it. I messed up apparently. So I go, all right, what happens? I leave the country and I come back to all this chatter where apparently I exploded the episode because that's what I do.
It was her aura.
Corey was moving from Costa Rica. Corey lives in Costa Rica half the year. So he's moving back to Canada for the summer. And his move across the world is happening the week he needs to edit this show.
Oh,
and
gosh.
And I'm like, come on. And then at the last minute, already late getting the show up, he starts editing and messaged me at 10 at night. So I'm missing 3/4 of Alina's recording. I'm like, what? I was like, how is that possible?
I know,
Alina
by the
will
way,
make it
she's in what
possible.
country were you in?
I was in Antigua.
Antigua, yeah.
Oh my gosh, where is that?
It's part of the Lesser Antilles in the West Indies, the Caribbean.
Oh, wow.
So not real good on internet connections
no.
there.
Yeah, no.
And not really wanting to think about podcasting or us for that matter. So
I totally understand that. When I go to a Caribbean island, I tend to disconnect from podcasting too.
Well, what's funny is, well, we were there. I was focusing on my other podcast show. And so you never, and this is something, Jessica, I know you can attest to, is you're kind of married to your podcast. You never really leave it behind. It becomes like a family member. So even when you are on some beautiful Caribbean island, you're like, oh, my listeners would love to see a picture of this, or my listeners would love to know about that adventure. You really don't ever leave it behind. It's a part of you. Yeah,
because it's not a job that we just have to clock in and out of. We really love it. So that's why I think, podcasters and entrepreneurs, we don't necessarily just totally disconnect all the time when we go away, because we really love it. It's something that we love. So why would we want to totally disconnect from it?
So we're thinking about going to Colorado. We've never been to Colorado. So we're talking about going to Colorado on vacation in September. And then we're going, well, wait a minute. There's a trade show that we've never gone to. WESA, Helena, is out there. The Western Equestrian one. And it's in Denver. And it's the 9th and 10th of September. Well, we can hit that the first 2 days. And then we could do a listener meetup while we're in Colorado. And then I know all these podcasters in Colorado. And now all of a sudden there's no time left for vacation.
Well, you know what, Glenn? That's a smart business move, because the vacation can be a business expense.
I know.
Absolutely.
Well, definitely. We don't do that anyway.
You have to balance out the time thing, so much time having fun and so much time working.
I know. I wish that when we went down to Tampa, I brought my family, but we didn't budget in any extra time for just relaxation. So it was in and we were out, but we should have. My husband and my 2 kids were off, going to the aquarium and different things, but I didn't really get any downtime.
No, you were having too much fun with us.
I know, it was a lot of fun.
Well, I wanted to mention, if you haven't had a chance to check it out, go to our Facebook page at Stable Scoop Radio Show. We put up we mentioned this before, I think, Helena, on the show, that they're doing a documentary on podcasting that actually run by the Florida group down here. But the quality of this documentary, judging by the trailer, is unbelievable. It looks like an official movie.
It does look like an official movie.
Didn't you get goosebumps when you watched it?
It's really, really cool.
And I was in it, but and also Scooter was in it.
I know, it was so fun to see you and your wife on the horses.
That was cool, and that was a drone shot. They brought a drone in and stuff. Cool. But if you want to see the trailer for this documentary, it's called "The Messengers: A Podcast Documentary." So, Helena, I didn't get a chance to talk to you yet. Did you see the trailer for the movie?
I did see The Messengers, the trailer, and I got all choked up. I tears welled up in my eyes.
I got a funny story to tell you guys. How would you describe to our audience Dave Jackson, like the godfather of podcasting?
Oh, gosh. Okay. First of all, like the Dalai Lama.
Yes.
Of podcasting.
Yeah, that's a good would you say, Jessica? That's about a good reference for Dave Jackson.
He has a lot of knowledge and a lot of wisdom and knows how to tailor what he knows to what you need to hear.
And he has a great show. It's been around for 10 years. He really knows what everything there is to know about podcasting. I was chatting with him after it came out. The trailer came out yesterday, and he said, "Don't tell anybody, but I played it about 20 times." And I said, "Don't tell anyone. I played it about 20 times too."
Well, that's what happens when you're the star of it. You just want to keep watching yourself over and over again.
No ego involved there at all. Jessica, so in that trailer, it ended with me actually saying that we're just beginning. You know, podcasting's been around for 10 years. We've been doing it for 10 or 12 years. We've been doing it for 9 of those years, actually, Helena and I. And I said at the end that we're just beginning because I truly believe podcasting was in its infancy, and now we're getting out of diapers. And I believe we are in the beginning. Do you believe that?
I do. I really do. I forget if it was you or if it was Dave, but somebody on the documentary was saying that it has gone up in popularity every single year. It continues to get more popular. And I know that there are some podcasters that are saying, well, you know, some people don't know if it's getting more popular or if it's starting to kind of level out. And you know, I have a business that serves podcasters, and, you know, I work with people in the podcasting industry. And if my business growth is any reflection of the growth of podcasting, then yeah, it's growing.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And there will be a leveling out as all new technologies sort of follow the bell curve, you know, and we hit a peak. But I think what's happening is that there's still a lot of people that I talk to who don't know how to access the shows, and or a podcast in general. And one of the first 2 questions that people will ask me when I introduce either Stable Scoop or that Newport show is, "What is that?" And I tell them it's a podcast. And then the next question they say is, "Well, how do I listen?"
Or what station are you on?
Or how do I listen? So I think that once the accessibility of podcasts becomes more mainstream, then maybe we'll start to see a leveling off. But you are right, Jessica. We are still on the way up.
I think, it's a good point you make about just the accessibility for average people, you know, not podcasters like ourselves. Because sometimes when we're in our own little bubble of podcasters, we're like, of course, everyone knows what it is. And then as soon as you talk to someone outside of this world, they're like, what is it? What do you have?
I got to tell you, we had our auditors a couple of weeks ago. I don't know if, Helena, you were on vacation or not, but I had them go out to their barns where all their friends are and ask them if they've ever listened to a podcast, not even ours, but a podcast. And 2 is, why haven't they? And I got about 100 responses from our auditors because they're like the best ever. And the responses all were, "I don't know how, it sounds complicated." So I think there's a mental block with people too. You know how it is trying something new. You put it off, and then you try it and go, "Well, that was hard." Right. And it really is, in our case, download an app, which they've all done. They all play Angry Birds or Words with Friends. And, you know, they just download our app and hit play. It's that simple.
Yeah.
Because our shows are there. They don't even have to worry about anything. They just download the app and literally hit play. So there, you know, that barrier's there. So when I just, by the way, I wanted to tell everybody, if you haven't gone to it yet, go to horseradionetwork.com. We completely redesigned the site because Google made us, or they were going to delist us. So we redesigned the site. It's very friendly now. And the first thing at the top of that page is how you listen to our shows. I put that at the very top of the homepage because that is still the problem.
Yeah, I think that I think that it would be great if Apple, you know, there's a podcast app that's native on the iPhone. So literally everyone with an iPhone can get in there. But I think that app should be redesigned and more easily, you know, make it easier. Because if you click on My Podcast, if you don't have any podcast subscribed to, which if you're new to listening to podcasts, you won't, it's a little bit confusing of where to go.
Well, and the other thing too, I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but when I'm looking for a new podcast, it's daunting.
Oh my God, yes.
It is.
How to find a show to listen to.
Yeah, and they're all there. They're all listed. You search for whatever, and you look at all the entries and you go, I don't even know where to start. So I can see why people are frustrated by that.
And it's like a big commitment to download a show. You're like, all right, do I want to download
I know,
this
I'm the same. I
podcast
thought it
It
was
is a
just me.
commitment.
and take up my precious space on my phone?
Predictability. One of the things that we talk about in the web design usability world is a predictability factor. You know,
Mhm.
before a user clicks on a link, you need to give them some sort of prediction as to what they're going to find behind that link, because they don't have the time to make a commitment. And
Yeah.
podcasts are even bigger. It's, you know, like 10 times the commitment
Yeah.
of just an unwanted web page. So you really do need to somehow the industry needs to tighten up that ship and make it
Yeah.
easier for people
Well-
to find not only shows with content that is relevant to them, to the listener,
Mhm.
but then you can spend 5 minutes listening to a show and go, no, I really don't like these hosts,
I know.
or the tone of their voice is a little bit difficult to listen to.
Yeah.
So there is a little bit of a trial and error part of it,
Give
which
us,
means you have
give
to
us
make
10 minutes,
it.
by the way. Give us 10.
Yeah, give us 10 minutes.
I usually tell people you've got 30 seconds before someone decides.
We want 10 minutes, Jessica. We're greedy. Now, the other problem I think podcasting has right now, and again, we're geeking out a little bit about podcasting because we know you all like podcasts, so you wouldn't be listening. The other problem that podcasting has, and this is a complaint that I've heard over and over and over again, is that, and a complaint I have, is when I go to iTunes or whatever your podcatcher is you go there, you find a podcast you like, and it hasn't been updated, or they've dropped off. The number still is something like 98% of podcasts are dead.
Oh,
Which,
yeah.
You know, with all the new podcasts coming out, what is it, 1,000 a week or something? It's just crazy.
Holy cow.
Yeah, it's a lot. Or 1,000 a week, 1,000 a month, something like that. And yet, in 6 months, 98% of them will have stopped.
Yeah, people don't stick with it long enough.
So what that does is bad for us because we haven't missed an episode in 9 years, but it's bad for us because people coming into podcasting, the friends of the people listening to the show today, are going to find all the dead ones and go, "Well, this is just frustrating. I'm out of here."
Yeah.
And they're not going to keep looking until they find the good ones. And how many are you going to go through as a person till you find one that's actually still producing? And I think that's a negative for all of us.
Yeah, it's hard because on the one hand, I would not argue for, dead podcasts to be taken out of iTunes, because if it's evergreen content, it could still be valuable for people to listen to, years in the future. However, it does make it hard if you're trying to find something that's current. Maybe there should say something like, archived show or not currently, just so people know that, all right, you can go on and listen to the previous episodes, but you're not going to get anything new to it.
Or how about when you see all the logos lined up, there's a little green dot on the corner that means you've produced a show in the last month.
I like that.
And there's a little yellow dot and a little whatever. There's a green and a red dot or whatever it is, or just a green dot that says I've done one in the last month. So people can look at the pictures of the show notes picture or the podcast.
Yeah.
What the hell's that called?
The podcast artwork?
Thank you. They can look at the artwork and go, okay, I know this is an active show.
Yeah, I like that idea.
Something that simple.
We should really send this to Apple. This is
I'm sure
this
they're
is
listening.
great. Well, no. This is actually, you never know, because they do have these forums and they do have, feature requests.
This is also something that you can implement with an actual network, because I'm guessing all of your shows on the Horse Radio Network are current, right?
Yeah, if they're on the app, they're producing episodes, correct?
Because somebody could have a network of shows and maybe one show is archived. You could just really implement this idea with your own network. If you were to have a show that is no longer producing, still have it up, but maybe don't have the green light on. Because I know some people with a network that, like Jason Hartman, for example, has like 21 shows, but he's not currently publishing on all those podcasts.
Yeah, and what we do is those shows I take off our app. Because you can still get them. You can still get them on iTunes. You can still get them on our website, but I take them off the app because I only want the active shows on the app.
That makes sense.
Yeah. I don't know if I'm right or wrong on that, but then who knows if we're right or wrong about any of this. So
Very
Jessica,
existential conversation.
Where can people find our interview with you guys?
Yeah, so go to the podcastproducers.com, and let me just double check if there's a specific URL. I should really have known that ahead of time.
It's podcastproducers.com/season-2. We'll put it in our show notes, and we'll plug it on. We've already plugged it on Facebook, but I'll put it up again.
Yeah, it doesn't look like there's a separate blog post for each one. It's just kind of a long feed. But the podcastproducers.com/season-2. You guys should go and listen to Glenn and Helena. It was a fun conversation with Helena at the tail end of it.
That was diplomatic,
That's where we
Jessica.
like
I
to-
appreciate
That's where
it.
we like to Helena's at the ass
Honestly,
end.
That was awesome. No, she was really diplomatic.
She
I love you,
was.
Jessica.
I said ass end. She
Love you
didn't.
guys too.
Fellow Rhode Islander, she was being nice to you. And you also have another show.
Yes, Roads to Success. Plays on my last name, RHODES, Roads to Success. Been largely a business and marketing show, but I'm kind of niching down into some podcast topics. Actually starting to put out some kind of teaching style episodes, which will be fun.
And
So-
now we have a lot of very, very smart, much smarter than we are, listeners. We're always shocked at how we have doctors and lawyers and all these people. You also have another business, and I just want to mention that because some of them may be interested in that from the guest side.
Sure. Yeah. Interview Connections is my business, and we book podcast guests. So we get people booked for interviews on podcasts as a guest expert, and we work with podcasters to find and book interviewees on their show.
And I can attest to that service because Jessica was kind enough to hook me up with a guest that I interviewed today, which was wonderful. So
Yeah, it was an old friend of mine, actually. So I'm like constantly matchmaking even when I'm not working in my business.
I like how you put that because you have such a positive, joyful energy that it is more about it's less, I don't know, it doesn't have that corporate business feel. You are like a matchmaker.
Like I
and that's-
genuinely like bringing people together because it's so fun to see the relationships come out of it.
Yeah.
All I can picture is the matchmaker in Fiddler on the Roof. That's all I can picture right now in my mind is, I forget what her name was, but you're not old and crinkly enough, Jessica, for that.
No,
so.
unfortunately, I'm not.
Give it time. She's got kids, you know.
That's true.
Yeah.
She's on the fast track there.
Exactly, right?
Jessica
It's
Rhodes,
a cool club, though, Jessica. It's a cool club.
thank you so much for being on.
Thanks for having me.
Take care.
Bye.
Well, Jennifer just got a couple boxes in from horselovers.com, and the nice part is the coupon code still exists. You put HRN in the coupon code, and you get 10% off your order. And now, if you go to horselovers.com, Helena, you haven't even seen this yet. Look in the upper right-hand corner of horselovers.com, and what do you see?
Uh-oh.
What do you
I
see?
I spy
What do
with
you
my little eye.
see?
Hear about us on radio or print.
Little microphone up there.
Yeah.
We're in the upper right-hand corner. You'll see a little microphone. All you do is click on that, put HRN in, and you get your discount applied to your order. So it's that simple. They've made it so easy. They didn't even tell me about this. I just saw it yesterday. And Jennifer had ordered last week. It wasn't there. So we're at the front page of horselovers.com. And she ordered a fly sheet for her horse. She ordered a different sheet for her horse. I'll tell you what, she got these sheets. They were Weatherbeta, I think. Yeah, Weatherbeta sheets.
Yeah.
She got them on sale, and I think the total bill, and then she ordered some other stuff, was like $60.
Awesome.
I mean, the prices at horselovers.com is incredible. And if you keep an eye on their flash sales or their deals of the day, you can get some really, really big deals.
You know what? Can I make a confession? One of the things that I love about horselovers.com is because they carry so much apparel, even though it's for equestrians. I find myself shopping there just for regular clothes.
Yeah, and it's affordable. You can afford to shop there for regular clothes. That's the
between
cool thing.
the discounts, the promos, and then the stuff that goes on sale. I'm like, why do I even need to shop anywhere else? Like, I wear mostly horse clothes anyway, and they have such super cute things.
I told everybody while you were gone, we and I'm going on there right now. Yes, it's still there. Do you know the Absorbing Ultra Shield Sport Continuous Fly Spray is the bottle that you can turn upside down? It's aerosol.
Yep.
And it's on sale there for $4.
Isn't that nuts?
It's $15, $16 if you're going to the tack shop. It's still on sale. I just looked for $4. We bought a case of 6, and it costs us, it was like $24 for a case of fly spray.
Well, I don't know where you're looking at $15 to $16 because that kind of stuff around here goes for like $20 to $23.
Well, right now you get on there, you order it, and you put in your 10% discount code. So
Love it.
check it out for all your fly spray needs. They're the largest online tack shop. So anything you want is going to be there, and you can get the discount too. Prices are great, and the selection is unbelievable. You have to go there like every week and check out the specials, though. It's really worth it. And get their emails. I get their emails now, so that helps a lot too.
It is the year of the listener. And now, our Stable Scoop listener of the week.
Well, Jessica Troup is here, and she is our listener of the week. Hi, Jess.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Jess is an auditor, and how long you been listening to the shows?
Oh, gosh. Probably since 2012, maybe? Yeah,
Wow,
I
she
think
can
that's
she can
right.
claim years.
Years.
She's got 2000. She was like 2000. Like, oh, okay. She knows us.
How'd you find us in the first place, Horse Radio Network?
So I had started leasing a horse again, and I wanted podcasts just about horses, and so I went into iTunes and typed in horses and found you guys. And then I got really excited when you guys came out with the app, and I downloaded the app because that made everything even easier.
Do you listen on the app, by the way?
I do, yeah. I usually have to listen to them after they're already recorded just because, jobs and life. But yeah, that's how I get to all of them.
Well, cool. And by the way, if you don't have our app yet, it's Horse Radio Network in iOS or Android App Store. It's free and it's easy. Download the app, hit play. That's pretty much it. It's that simple. Well, now you listen to us because you do a lot of driving. Tell us about your real job. Hey, Helena, we have another smart one, by the way.
Oh, boy. They just keep coming out of the woodwork.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, so I work in medical sales. So I am driving all day long, all over the place, and, just going and visiting clients and talking about diseases and products and things like that. So I am behind the wheel a lot, probably as much as a trucker. So
we talked about with our first guest today how smart our listeners are. Yeah. And every time I have one on, I feel so small because you got a big brain, girl.
Oh, gosh.
Well,
I don't know about that.
It's a nice job to have, despite the driving. You do have a lot of freedom, don't you? Would you say that doing the type of work that you do gives you some flexibility that other people in a cubicle might not have?
Yeah, I mean, it's really nice to kind of make your own schedule. You're really kind of, you're kind of a small business owner in a way because you're doing your own thing. You definitely have to be a go-getter and kind of somebody who can work like that. But I love it. I'm not an office person, so
yeah,
this is
you're
kind of like the perfect fit for me.
It's funny because you're in offices all day, and I, with pharmaceutical sales and medical sales, boy, you guys have to hustle. That's a hustling gig.
It is, yeah.
Now, do you you're married?
I am, yes. We just had our 2-year anniversary last week.
Well, congratulations. Happy anniversary. Is your husband horsey?
I made him horsey, kind of.
My favorite thing to hear.
He's been indoctrinated, kind of. We're still working on it. I tried to get him, doing trail rides and things like that. But he had a bad experience on one of the last trail rides we did, which was about a year ago. And it was after it was more than that now. Probably was right before we got married. So I guess it was 2 years ago. And so I had just gotten my off-track thoroughbred, and we were on a trail ride with like a group, and my guy was really, having a hard time. So I'm like, you know what, you guys go ahead and I'm going to work with my horse on whatever's happening right now. Well, they didn't realize that my poor husband was still a beginner rider, and they all took off galloping across the field. And he was on like this giant draft horse that I thought was, super safe. And he was,
until he thinks he's getting left behind.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, of course, this horse took off with the group, and he, at least he stayed on because he said he thought about jumping off. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad you didn't do that.
Yeah. Bailing out never works the way you think it's going to.
No.
Right, Helena?
Oh, poor guy. All right. So he either has to forget. See, men now this may be gender bias, but I'm going to roll with it anyway. Men don't have that internal mechanism that makes them forget their pain. I think women are born with it so that we can keep reproducing when we have children and we go through labor. After the child comes, you forget about all that chaos and all that pain. So you can have more kids. Men, I don't think, are born with that. So when they have a bad experience on a horse, it takes them a lot longer to forget.
Yes.
And you know what's interesting is in marriage, it's just the opposite. Women never forget anything that you do wrong. They never forget that. Whereas men are like, what the hell? We're moving on because we just don't have we're too lazy to remember it. But you guys are like 20 years later still bringing up the same thing. So it's funny how it's the exact opposite. But I agree with the pain thing, by the way, Helena. I think that's true.
Yeah.
Well, Jessica, now tell us about your horse.
So he is, I call him a war horse because they raced him until he was 8 years old. And I got him, I guess, shortly after he came off the track. I was volunteering at the Therapeutic Riding Center, and this track, the track closed down, so that's why they, took him off. And so they brought him there for them to sell because they weren't going to be able to use him for therapeutic riding, obviously. But I was there and I was like, oh, well, don't sell him just yet. Let me work with him. And yeah, so I totally fell in love with him and had to buy him. And now I've had him, let's see. So I guess I got him in 2012. So maybe I've had him a little longer than I thought. Yeah, so sorry, I think my phone cut out for a second. Can you guys hear me?
Yep, you're here.
You're
Yep,
good.
you
No worries.
Sorry about that. So I've had him since 2012, and he's come so far. He had to put a lot of weight on, and really kind of learn the basic things that horses need to learn. After coming from living a life of literally living at the track. But he has a little claim to fame. He did win at Saratoga in 2007. So I think that's kind of cool. I have the pictures from that I'm trying to get framed for my house. But, I'm just so surprised that, him having been on the track for so long, he is just cool as a cucumber when it comes to pretty much everything. I've taken him on all kinds of trail rides. He's seen things that I'm like, okay, for sure, this is going to be it. He's going to bolt or he's going to blow up. And he hasn't. He's come like face to face with a giant buck, and, standing right in front of him on a trail. And he's been like, okay, well, let's just stand here and wait for it to go away. So, he's pretty amazing. So we're working on, doing some combined training right now. We've had our training put off for a little bit because I had an injury, not horse related. It was a car accident. And then my horse had an injury. He got kicked by another horse. So we've had to put our stuff on hold off and on for a while, but now we're back into doing jumpers and dressage. So really excited to get back into that and hopefully do some showing this summer.
Now you're in Virginia, right?
Yep. I'm just north of Richmond. So kind of like a northern suburb of Richmond.
What and part of the
Helena, cut there. We have to wait for your sound to come back. Helena's having internet issues today.
Uh-oh.
So.
Okay.
Not yet.
Okay. Connection. Interesting.
Not yet. What were you going to ask? I'll just ask, and then by the time I'm done, your sound will be back.
I know. I was going to ask her. Well, her bio said she moved from Tennessee to from Florida to Virginia. So that's sort of the opposite of what a lot of people do. So I wanted to ask about what brought you to Virginia.
Oh, okay. And your sound's sort of coming back now. So you can probably even ask it yourself.
Okay.
3,
2, 1. So in the bio background that you sent to us before this week's episode, it says that you went from Florida, or you moved from Florida to Virginia. Now, a lot of people go the other way around because not that Virginia is a cold place, but what prompted you to move to Virginia from Florida?
So it was my husband's job that brought us up to Virginia, and we very much miss Florida, to put it lightly.
Oh, what part of Florida were you in?
So we were in Tallahassee. I actually grew up there, and that's where we met. And then I have a lot of family just throughout Florida. I'm, born and raised, so I miss it. I know we want to come back at some point. But
we
for
miss
now, yes,
you.
we're in Virginia. We're actually doing a vacation to Florida in 2 weeks, and we can't wait.
Where are you going? Where are you going?
So we're going to St. George Island. It's in the Panhandle. It's off the coast. Maybe not quite as far as Destin, but kind of out there. It's honestly my favorite beach in the world, just because it's not super touristy like some of the other ones can be, and it's just always been a family vacation spot for us.
Cool. Very well. One of these trips down there, you're going to have to come by the studio.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Because you guys are in Ocala, which is really not that far from Tallahassee.
No, it's not. And you're welcome anytime.
Aww. And they're fun to stay with. I promise you. They're not as well. Jennifer is awesome. Glenn has his days, but he's a very gracious host, I can say.
Oh, well, after everything I've heard about Nigel and Beaker, Beaker's gone now, but Scooter, I have to meet them at some point.
Yes, that's right. And you have to go for a cart ride.
Huh?
You have to go for a cart ride to experience bolting. It's just something.
Oh my gosh.
You have to do.
Well, speaking of this traveling and adventures, tell us what the most adventurous place is that you've ever ridden a horse.
Well, so I mean, I've done like the normal like local national parks that we have here in Virginia, and even some of the ones down in Tallahassee, like we had in the Greenway. So I mean, it's not super exciting. The one thing I've had happen is, so I used to board. My horse's name is Apache, by the way. I don't think I mentioned that. I used to board Apache at this place that also had a dog boarding facility and training facility on site. And one of my favorite fields happened to double as a Schutzen field, which Schutzen it's what they train the police dogs and protection dogs. It's, the German Shepherds, and, they do the bite training there. And I always made sure to avoid the times that they were going to be out training for very obvious reasons. But it was a great place to have a good, canter around the field and everything. But I've definitely had my run-ins where, I'm exiting the field and they're coming in with it's kind of weird because they would have this SUV and it would pull like a trailer, like you would pull a horse trailer, except it was for dogs. It's the weirdest thing I've ever seen. And it's got these little kennels in there and it's full of angry, crazy German Shepherds in there just going nuts, and they're seeing the horse. And so
Scooter would be so out of there. We would be in the next county. We'd be in the next state in about 10 minutes.
So at least I can say my horse is angry German Shepherd proof.
Yeah. Not everybody can say that.
That's a skill. Put it on his resume.
Yeah.
That's funny.
It's on there for sure. Among all the other weird things that he's seen with all the farms we've boarded at. So I guess that's definitely the weirdest thing we've ever encountered. We've also had one of the barn cats jump into the saddle with me.
Oh, that's always fun.
Which he didn't like too much.
No. That's always fun.
No.
The one time I did see Jennifer get bucked off was when she was riding a crazy Arab to begin with. This horse was just nuts. And she was trying to get it unnuts, and she was trying to be very calm and patient with it, Monty Roberts style. And in the middle of the arena, I was standing out there with her. The middle of the arena, one of the barn cats takes a flying leap right onto the horse's butt and digs in.
No.
Jennifer went about 10 feet in the air, and that horse was gone. It was just, we never got it right after that either. That horse ended up going to a sale or something because it was just nuts. But who could blame it?
Oh my gosh.
Well, we have some rapid fire questions for you. Helena, you ready?
I am ready. Are you
right,
ready, Jess?
I'm ready.
Okay, here we go. Tell us, what is your favorite food?
got to be mac and cheese.
Yeah.
Oh,
yes.
yum.
Yes.
Oh, man. Okay. What's your least favorite food?
It's a tie between onions and mayonnaise.
Well,
Oh, onions. I'm there with you, girl. Whew.
Ugh, can't do them.
Okay. All right. And so are you the type of person who
no
will
blooming
pick,
onion for her at Outback.
will you pick the onions off a hamburger if somebody accidentally puts them on there, or will
Oh,
you
yeah.
suck it up and eat them?
Oh, no. I do it, and sometimes I'll make my husband do it.
Yeah. I do too. There are times I'm like, listen, I'm really kind of very courteous and respectful, but I have got to pick the onions off this because if I eat them, I will die. You know.
Oh, it's an art form too. When you're able to eat like perfectly around it too, it's a skill.
I'm that
It
way
is
with
an art
mushrooms. I can pick a
form.
mushroom out of anything.
All right. So besides onions, I'm going to assume that you have a pet peeve that's related to the equestrian world. What is it?
I really can't stand it when people, they get a horse and then they just never spend any time with them, and they only come out to the barn they get on, they ride, they get off, and that's it. Like, spend some time with your pony.
Assuming they have the time, that would be nice. They need to make the time, don't they?
Yes.
Yeah, it's a commitment. I think a lot of people get into horses without realizing the time commitment.
Right.
But you know what I find interesting, Glenn, is that a lot of these pet peeves, the equestrian pet peeves, really have less to do with horses and life in general, and it has to do with other people.
Other people, exactly.
It's other people. Horses are never the problem. The barns are never the problem. It's always people. Do you have a favorite professional celebrity equestrian?
I do. She's a local celebrity to Tallahassee, is Elisa Wallace. So
Yay, Elisa, go Elisa.
I actually, when I lived in Tallahassee, went to Fred Hills and saw her ride there, and just have always followed her. So
You don't listen to her, me doing the show with her husband, do you? The horse husband's episode.
Oh, I do.
Ah, you're not allowed. Women aren't allowed.
Do. Well, I sneak in. So.
Well, guess whose husband is on my list now? I just wrote him down. A certain Roger Troup is now on my list for the horse husbands episode.
No.
All right. If you could try any other career besides one in medical sales and besides a career with horses, what would you like to try?
Well, this isn't medical sales, but I always wanted to be a doctor. So I would love to do that or go into medical research. I love it. Always wanted to do that.
See, Glenn, horse people are helping people.
And are smart, apparently.
Yeah, until they come on the show with us.
And then they're done.
We'll chalk that up to a momentary lapses in reasoning. All right. If you could describe yourself with only 3 words, what 3 words would you use?
Definitely equestrian. Loyal and honest.
Oh, I love that she used equestrian.
Yeah, I did too. That's a first.
Everybody else uses,
yeah.
adjectives, or descriptive adjectives. Yeah. She's like, yep, I'm an equestrian. Love it. Okay. If you could have just one, or let's back it up. If you could have a superhero power, what would it be?
I think it would have to be able to talk to animals. There was like this cartoon that used to come on Nickelodeon, and it was this girl who could talk to animals, and I used to always want to be like her.
Oh,
that's cool.
You probably can, you just don't know it. Because, so this is a perfect segue into the next question. If your horse could speak, what single question would you ask him?
So this was kind of funny, but he has this best friend. It's another thoroughbred, and they boarded together at one barn, and then I went to another one for a while, and then went to a third barn, and the person who owned that horse had moved there too. And they found each other and were like best friends again. And so I would have to ask him about what makes you guys best friends, because they are just, they have to graze next to each other. if you put one out and the other's still eating, the other one just calmly waits until the other one's done eating, and then you put them out and then they go off together. They race each other in the fields. It's just, I have to know, what is it about this other horse that makes him your best friend?
I love that question. That's my favorite question of all of these, Glenn. I think Jess wins it.
Yep, there you go.
What do you love about your bestie? Like,
Yeah.
because everybody wants a bestie in life, and when you see that your horse has one, you just want a little sneak peek into that magical love.
Yes, and it's funny because we call them the thoroughbros because they hang out all day long.
That's pretty good.
That's a new. That we're
Thoroughbros.
totally going to coin that one, the thoroughbros.
And they do. I think and it is interesting. It would be great to find out. We sold the one Percheron we had. It was about 18 and a half hands, and he weighed over a ton. He was a huge horse. And when we went to visit him 2 years after we sold him, he had a best friend, and his best friend was literally 11 hands. And it was a little tiny pony, and the pony literally walked without bending over under the Percheron, between his legs.
Oh my gosh.
And he would just go back and forth between his legs, and they would eat in the field together. And the owner said that these two horses will not separate ever. And if you try and mess with the pony, that Percheron is running your ass over. And they even were in the stall together. They would be in the stall together. So what made them best friends? That's a good question, Jess.
That's a really good question. Yeah. Excellent. Well, that wraps up our rapid fire. I know I'm not so rapid, and they're not really
we always
firing.
end up talking.
That wraps up our list of questions.
Thank you, Jess.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
And thank you for listening.
To know you.
Hey, our next thing to do on our schedule for the show here today is put a little plug in for becoming an auditor. What would you say about becoming an auditor to people who are not?
Well, after having listened to this show for so long, I mean, I personally felt like I owed you guys something for listening so long. I wanted to give back because it makes my life so much better to be able to listen about horses while I'm driving all day long. But also I have to say that Facebook group is it's seriously like the nicest people in the world who, it's the nicest group on Facebook, because I'm a part of so many other groups on Facebook where people just get nasty and say mean things. And it's just the complete opposite of that. It's just, you feel like everyone is friends, and I love it.
Oh, that's such a good thing to hear.
Well, I don't have to add anything to that. If you want to become an auditor, just go to horseradionetwork.com or stablescoop.com, and there's an auditor banner there. You can click on it for as little as $1 a month. You too can become one of the special people, and we'll add you to that Facebook group too. And you're right. And you know what's interesting is I've never had to delete a post. We have a couple of rules in there. We don't talk religion, we don't talk politics, and we're never negative. And I have never had to delete any post from anybody or comment or anything. So that's good for, it just says a lot about you guys.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Jess.
Well, thank you.
Well, this Tack and Habit product is, of course, sponsored by horselovers.com. And starting next week, a whole bunch of our auditors have been shipped products, and they're going to be starting to do the reviews on the Tack and Habit segment. Well, now you did this review. It's the Letia Click AP Girth with Cool Max lining.
Woo, that's a mouthful. All right. So I need to start off with, I did not like this girth at first. Nope. In fact, I hated it. And I was like, Glenn, take it back. I don't want it. But guess what? That was before I even tried it.
Well, you don't like those click buckles.
Well, here's the thing. I didn't know what I liked. What I did like about I have Letia Cool Max lined girth, and I love it. It's too big for Brody, so I had to give it away. So I really, really like the Cool Max technology in these girths. So the click technology, this is new to me. Because my fat pony.
Can you explain it? I'm not even sure I've seen it yet. So
I will. Because my fat pony likes to bloat when I girth him up, even though I have a hole at the very, very, very end of my billets, and I go up one at a time. I mean, this horse gets so pampered when he gets girthed up, but he bloats. So I'm constantly having to adjust my girth, from starting to tack up until I get in the saddle, and even until I'm like halfway out on the trails. So I thought the click buckle would be cool, But the click buckles, so here's what I didn't like about it. The click buckles are designed so that you can, when you pull up on the billet to adjust the girth, whether you're on the ground or in the saddle, the little thingamajiggy, the little, what would you call that thing in the middle of a buckle? A spear type thing.
Oh, I don't know what it's called.
Right? There's a contest for you.
Yeah,
Come up with the name for that little piece in the middle of a buckle. So that thing
Not the tongue,
it's spring loaded. So
Oh.
you don't have to pay attention to that thing. All you do is pull get a grip on your billet, pull it up, and the girth and the buckle will automatically snap closed
Well,
in
that's
the
a
next
good
hole.
thing, right?
It's a good thing. I didn't realize that until I needed to use it, till I actually put it on my horse and was like, oh, I got to tighten this girth up. I grabbed my billet and it was like somebody tightened my girth for me. It was amazing. What I didn't think I was going to like, what I thought was going to be a problem about this girth is that the metal of the buckle is thicker than your average non-click buckles. So it's a tiny bit bigger, but moderately thicker. And I'm like the princess and the pea, so I don't like to feel any extra bulk under my saddle flaps. So I was like, I'm going to buckle this thing up. I'm going to feel it under my knee or my thigh. I'm going to hate it, blah, blah, blah. Did not even notice the extra thickness in the buckle. Didn't even notice it. Total non-issue. So the benefits of being able to adjust my girth super easily from the saddle far outweighs any, misconceived notion I might have had about the thickness of the buckle under the saddle. Fabulous girth. Loved it. So I also used the all-purpose neoprene girth, which I found to be just as wonderful as the fleece covered. It's the same click buckle technology where the tongue, that's what it is. The tongue of the buckle closes automatically for you. So both versions were wonderful. The click all-purpose girth, I think, is about $66. And then the one with the Cool Max lining is $56.
Right price.
But they're both washable.
Very good. And if you order right now, you can get the extra 10% off with the HRN coupon code. And of course, we'll put a link to these products in our show notes at stablescoop.com and also on our Facebook page. Horselovers.com is where you can find them. Well, thank you, Helena.
You're welcome. I love these girths. I really do. I mean, I know it's a product review, but
And that's not what she said when she first talked to me about them before she tried them. So there you go. That's an important lesson learned.
Yep.
For details about today's show, we go to stablescoop.com. Go check out the new Facebook page. Have you, or not Facebook page, the new website at horseradionetwork.com. Have you seen my handiwork yet?
I am very proud of the fact that you upgraded.
I know. It looks nice. It's so easy and simple to get around now. So you want to check that out. It looks great on the phone, too. So take a look at that. Tell all your friends to go to it now, because if they don't know how to listen, it's pretty clear on this website how you'd listen now. So hopefully we'll be bringing in some new people as well. And the HRN app, iOS or Android, it's free. It's easy to download. And this is the point where Helena jumps in and finishes it out.
Oh, sorry. Head cold, post-vacation trauma.
Yeah. Sunburn.
Oh my gosh. Sunburn. No, I did. That was one thing I did not experience. Thank God. For details about today's show, go to stablescoop.com.
I did that already.
Oh, crap. Well, that's purple. See, that's mine.
I already did all that. Just say goodbye, Helena.
No, we need to talk about this for a minute here. Okay. You always read the purple, and then that's what messes me up.
I'm always ready to just get to the end.
I know, but you throw me for a loop here. So, oh, God, you know what he's trying to do? I'll tell you what he's trying to do. He's trying to get blooper reel material.
Why don't you
and I fall for it every single time.
Every time, that's right.
Well, be sure to log on next week for another episode of Stable Scoop. And please remember that we love your feedback. Join us as an auditor, and you get to have access to our amazing private Facebook group where you can give us all the feedback you want. But if you're not going to do that, at least follow us on Facebook or Twitter, get the real inside scoop, join the family. Many thanks to this week's sponsors. Glenn, can you remind me of who they are?
HorseLovers.com and our auditors.
Okay.
And
Are we
that's
done?
it. We're done. Yep.
Oh, thank God. At least there'll be more next week. Until then, happy scooping.